Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha.
All right, welcome. So good to see all of you here. Happy New Year. It's good to be. I'm sort of back home. I'm literally at home. Normally I'd be there at the center, but I caught a little bug, so I didn't want to get anyone else sick. But I'm functional enough to offer this, so very grateful for that. All right, so for those of you maybe new, what we're doing is we're going through the classic instructions on how to meditate on the stages of the path to enlightenment. And these are analytical meditations that are taught to ripen the mind with deeper understanding. And typically, one would take one of these and go away, meditate on it, get some real realization. And so it might be a month, 2 months, get a realization, then you sit with that realization. You let it move from an intellectual thought process to actual embodied realization. What we get to do is unpack them in a teaching, just uh, unpack them, what would we contemplate, what are the key points, and then invite you during the week to adopt that way of life, that check it during the week, see how it works out for you, and then we come back to the next one. So last week was on the I'm trying to think of the word. I don't want to come with detrimental, but anyway, the downside of being self-cherishing, self-obsessed. Um, and now we get to look at the benefits of cherishing others. So we'll pop that text up. Okay. Benefits of cherishing others. The mind that cherishes mothers and places them in bliss is the gateway leading to infinite qualities. Seeing this, I seek your blessings to cherish these transmigratory beings more than my life, even should they rise up as my enemies. And so, quick note there, the mind that cherishes mothers, seeing all others as your mothers is the view on that all others give life to us, all others provide for us. We don't really have anything in our lives without others. And your mothers and parents and so forth. So recognizing all beings as your mother, as mothers. So opposite to self-centeredness is altruism, also known as cherishing others. There are many benefits of this attitude for ourselves and for others. Shantideva said, whatever worldly joy there is arises from wishing for others' happiness. Let's look at why this is so. The Mahayana Buddhist teachings say that cherishing others, that is, viewing them with compassion and love and doing what we can to help them, is the source of all good and happiness. Think of some acts of kindness and compassion that you have observed or heard about, such as people helping those who are hungry, homeless, sick, dying, frightened, and so forth. These acts arise from altruism and a willingness even to forego one's own comfort and needs in order to alleviate another's suffering and bring them happiness. That's a highlighter here. Oops. Sorry, tricky, touchy pad here. This one. This is not the first time. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. What would the world be like if no one was altruistic? if no one stepped up to assist the victims of wars, natural disasters, or famine. So just take a moment. These acts arise from altruism and a willingness even to forego one's own comfort and needs in order to alleviate others' suffering and bring them happiness. Wow. That almost sounds straight out of the book, The Road Less Traveled by F. Scott Peck, where he describes love as a willingness to extend oneself for another's personal and spiritual growth, the willingness to put yourself out so that another one can benefit. And so this is going to be universally true. Of course, it's here in Buddhism, but you're going to find it across philosophies, across religions, an actual real understanding of what love is, what it's about. And we don't want to confuse this with enabling unhealthy behaviors. That's not loving. It's not compassion. It's not kind. So sometimes extending ourselves for others, willing to forego pleasure to engage in something that's difficult. That those of you who've been around a while, we know, we emphasize this. We can be setting a boundary, having a tough conversation with someone, and that's hard, but we're doing it out of love and out of compassion because we want the best for the other person. So not thinking of their happiness being getting what they want, but their happiness that arises from being a person they feel good about being, living in virtue. And so having these opportunities to extend oneself, which sometimes is having to hold some accountability towards someone. Sometimes it's just doing the best you can to help them feel better in some way. But the motivation is for their, what we call genuine happiness, a lasting happiness of well-being, and enabling an unhealthy behavior does not provide that. So it's not putting yourself in an unhealthy situation, that enables the behavior, but rather how do we extend our love and our care? How do we be an example of love? How do we help others? And how can we be of benefit? And that's the kind of joy we're talking about. And when we're able to do this, we're going to find an incredible amount of benefit. So let's take a little peek there. Just want to make sure we hit that right. But no one stepped up to assist in victims of wars, natural disasters, or famine. It's also helpful to think of people you most admire and check why you feel that way. What qualities do you see in them that attract and inspire you? Are they self-centered and greedy, or altruistic and compassionate? This reflection can help us to identify the ideal qualities to cultivate within ourselves. We can also recognize the benefits of altruism by contemplating karma and its results. Good things that happen in our lives are the result of virtuous karma that we create in the past, motivated, at least partially, by an altruistic cherishing of others. So just pausing for a moment before we unpack that. Here's a simple thing. What if you were able to see a bunch of dishes, know that your partner's tired, and you think, wow, I got to help them out. I got to do a bunch of dishes. I got to be of service. Or you're at a gathering and, all the dishes are piling up, and you think to yourself, wow, I get to contribute to this, can be of service, clean the dishes, be of benefit, be helpful, and what a gift it is to be a part of this group. And, the people that hosted us cooked, and, what a gift it is to be helpful and contribute. Probably feels a lot better than, oh my God, here's all these dishes. And, my partner's not doing them, and, I'm stuck with them one more time. And so there's this very simple contrast between, just in one simple activity, how much more beneficial it is to have an attitude where we have a chance to be helpful, and how much suffering can come from the very same activity when I'm self-centered, right? Hoping somebody else gets those dishes so I don't have to do them. And so just a very simple thing, if we start to understand, wow, what a very different level of happiness I can have when I engage in altruism, and how much more suffering I'll have simply doing something that's, by the, dishes generally aren't that difficult. Just knocked out a few a while ago. And, but it's the resistance and then all the scorekeeping and, me and them. And so just on a very simple thing, whatever task we're doing, if we have a mind that recognize that we have a life because of everyone else, and everything I have in my life is because of them, and what a gift it is that I can be a part of this, have such abundance and be helpful in a part of it, a lot less suffering with whatever I'm doing, as opposed to being more self-centered and what's in it for me and what's going to make me feel good, and evaluating people based on what they do for us. There's a huge difference right there we can notice right off the bat between how we feel, how we experience our lives, how we experience events. So just recognizing that in a very simple way. And let's now go into those other points. And by the way, if at any point you want to share something, have a question or a comment, feel free to dive in. So when we contemplate like karma and understanding that how we feel, how we experience things has to do with our previous conditioning, cause and effect, then we have a basic premise, which actually I'm going to apparently need to talk to you again, a very fundamental premise that all happiness, like lasting genuine happiness, not pleasure, genuine happiness, arises from virtue, and all suffering from non-virtue. It's just the basic premise, foundational, it's a hypothesis. It's something to look into. And it's not something just to adopt because, well, it's here, it's in the book, it says so that's the way it is. It's like, well, investigate. When you do things that you feel good about, do you feel better about who you are? When you have less of a selfish attitude, do you have a better experience as you engage in life? When you do virtuous activity, what's the benefit of that? It's more subtle and actually quite a bit complex when we look at karma overall, which is, as we ripen into virtuous karma, how we experience things is going to be very different. So, and that comes all the way down to the food we eat and how we experience certain situations, things we like, things we don't like. It's not so much the things, it's how we've been conditioned and what gives rise to those experiences. So engaging in virtue, being kind and so forth, that's going to lead to pleasurable experiences later. And the experiences don't mean we get the fun vacation. It means we can actually feel good sitting in our front porch. We can have more resiliency when a difficult event happens. It didn't trigger us in a way that it triggers others. And so recognizing with the cause and effect that what we're doing right now is creating our future. And if we get that, then it's like, wow, whatever's happening today, it doesn't matter what it is. I have an opportunity to cultivate good karma. I have an opportunity to engage with it in a way that's creating a better future for myself and my ability to help others. So the negative thing that's popping up now that I'm experiencing a difficult way, well, that karma is being exhausted. How I engage with it is creating my future. So when we have difficult events and things that really show up, we're actually getting rid of that. And how I engage with it is planting the seeds for my future. And that's incredible. That's incredible. No matter what's happening. it's always an opportunity to cultivate virtue, compassion, loving kindness, which will manifest as to how I'm conditioned in the future and how I experience things. Right down to the food I eat, the people I come in contact with, I'll find less of them annoying and find ways and appreciate people in better ways. I'll have less mental afflictions arising. So that's the basic premise there with thinking about karma in that way as well. And so that's a little harder to get. So we like to start with what's very tangible, which is, how do you feel about yourself when you do things you feel good about versus when you do things you don't feel good about? Very simple. The more I engage in virtue, the better I feel about who I am. The more I engage in non-virtue, the more, I struggle with my own insecurity, fears, and values as a human being. So that's very tangible. And we know it when we do things we don't feel good about. So, starting where we're at and then exploring. And then over a while, we might start to recognize it just feels so much better to engage in life with an understanding of our interdependence and the opportunities to be helpful and kind, that my life has purpose and meaning, and what I do makes a difference. And all these people are helping me learn how to live, to make good use of my life, and to engage in this rare and precious life in ways that are meaningful. That's not a bad way to show up for life. Okay. So let's get to it again here. So again, back to karma. Good health and long life are the result of nonviolence toward others and protecting life. So the more that we are kind, that we are helpful, we avoid anger, hatred, nonviolence. Yeah, longer life, good health. Having resources like food, clothing, shelter, and being successful in our endeavors are due to refraining from stealing and practicing generosity. So the cause for, these types of resources, actually, I'd say karmically, is generosity. Stinginess is not so helpful. You might get some stuff, but it's going to be hard to feel too good about it. Being physically attractive is the result of practicing patience. So clearly, I have not practiced much patience in my life. I'll need to work on that. Okay, enjoying stable, healthy relationships is due to using sexuality wisely and refraining from harmful sexual behavior. So that's pretty straightforward. It's not very esoteric. Um, being authentic with our partners, and we're gonna have healthier relationships. Yeah. And then being respected by others is a result of humility and treating others with respect. Again, that one's very clear. So just for the record, these teachings coming within the Lamrim stages path to enlightenment, are tapping into the fundamental principles of Buddhism teaches around karma and what these qualities, how cause and result. And so some people find that helpful to reflect on that as benefits. I don't find it that helpful. Yeah, so hopefully I won't get struck down here. What I do find helpful is not catching the outcomes, but rather the sense of how I'm being able to experience my life and how I get to walk in the life, and the results not being, better looking or having resources, but rather the results being able to be comfortable in my own skin, not have insecurity, to live in a balanced way in my life where I actually have a choice about what I attend to and how I attend to it, the emotional stability to engage in the world. Those types of things I find very valuable. Otherwise, it can seem like a checklist. Well, do this stuff. But as soon as you start doing it for that other outcome, you're undermining the karmic way anyway. So rather than that type of reflection, for some people might be helpful. I find that in the world that we're living in, though, you'll start to see that all this abundance we live in doesn't make you happy all the time, does it? We can have an incredible amount of abundance and be stressed, worried, fearful, be uncomfortable in our own skin and have anxiety. And so remembering this is about inner qualities, inner experiences, and how we engage in the world is going to have a huge impact on how we experience things. And so when they're talking about resources don't mean, the big fancy house. Resources is you got shelter, you got food, you have enough. And and there's a sense of contentment and joy around that. So so there's the more traditional method, with these aspects. I do find that I need things a little more tangible, practical, and it's really always an inner work here, and not trying to get samsara to be the way I'd like it, or me to be the way I can engage in samsara. So the motivations being pure, really helpful. All right. Let me get to this next little piece here. These examples from the Buddhist teachings demonstrate that in our past lives, altruism, caring about others and wanting them to be happy and not suffer motivated us to avoid harmful actions and do what was beneficial and virtuous. We are currently enjoying the fruit of that good karma. If we wish to enjoy similar experiences in the future, we need to act altruistically now. And so there we get right back to it. Wow. You have a rare and precious human birth, favorable Dharma practice, incredibly rare. You've worked a lot in your life seeking to be well, to be healthy, to have a purposeful life, to overcome adversity. You've created the conditions in your life to have ripened, to have suffered enough, to have sought enough, to put yourself in a position where Dharma is available to you. These methods and practices for thousands of years are made available, can speak to you. You have access to them. You've done a lot of amazingly good, virtuous activity, and it's all ripened. And so now we have the opportunity to be even more skillful, recognizing the value of the efforts of others and our opportunity to have the lives that we do, and the opportunity to understand the real sources of happiness and the real sources of suffering, which, it's not about getting the heated seats in the Subaru. However, that is a temporary pleasure. It's about being able to look in the mirror, feel good about who you are, that your life has purpose and meaning. I recently just came back from a workshop that I taught out in California, and not Buddhist, more secular world, and just the incredible research on the abundance that nations have, the high level of things and resources and stuff that modern nations have, and the decline of happiness across the board. And so this is really allowing us to recognize what's the true source of this genuine happiness and well-being. And it's always going to come down to virtue. And that's not even limited to a Buddhist teaching. You're going to find that in all the philosophies and Aristotle and so forth. And even maybe your mom taught you that. But that's not how we live. It's so easy to think if I get this or I get that, then heaven made. And then we get this or that. And then we still have some stress, worry, or fear. So having clear directions, skillful guidance to recognize, like intrinsically, the causes of this well-being. Wow, that's incredible. Not just an intellectual knowing, not a nice philosophical conversation. No. Yeah, those don't change us. But noticing what happens, noticing when we're self-centered, noticing when we're connected, noticing the difference between me-centered and we-centered, noticing the difference, just as I mentioned earlier, most of my attitude around doing the dishes. One attitude is going to create a lot of suffering. The other attitude can create a lot of joy. And the only difference is my attitude, my motivation. It's not the activity. And so that's why it's so valuable to take some time to reflect, to know, and then to engage in the world with this mindset, and then see for yourself whether it makes sense, whether it's valuable, or whether it's just not for you. You can only find out by trying, being discerning, and seeing for yourself. That's why we gain authentic faith, is through experience, discernment, and testing. All right. Nobody's chiming in yet. You guys are making me talk a lot.
Hey, John, I have a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. All right.
We talked last week about like the difference between self-care and self-cherishing. And with this one, I guess I'm thinking of, with cherishing others, and then, like sometimes it's good to let others help you as part of that process as well. So just kind of finding that balance too. And if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, that's critical. And it can be very self-centered to not let someone help you. Yeah, I did kind of just bring up my own personal experience where, I don't want to be a bother to anyone. I can take care of myself, and can be deathly ill, and I don't want my wife Laura to be put out. And but she let me know very clearly that I'm not allowing her to show me her love, to do something she would feel good about, and that's very self-centered. And I've had to learn. I had to learn to allow her to be helpful to me, and allow people to be kind. And it can be very challenging for us to learn that we are not altruistic at all when we don't allow others to be there for us. And then I think even more to your point is to be able to ask for help, right? To be able to ask for help, to express needs. And that's incredibly compassionate, not just for yourself, but for others. So much of relationship issues and neighbor issues, and even in nonviolent communication, is fundamentally people are not able to express their needs, their underlying needs, and so we get caught up in judgments and how we talk to each other. So the ability to be able to express some needs, to communicate in a healthy way, and to allow others that opportunity, it's altruistic for self and others. And the other piece to that is when we think about all other sentient beings, we are part of all other sentient beings. So there's in the 7-point mind training, don't put the weight of I think it's a zoe on to a yak or an ox. In other words, one of these animals can carry a lot more weight than the other. And the idea is that we take on too much weight for ourselves. And that's harmful. We're not able to be healthy. We're not able to be well. We're not able to help anyone else. So we always need to meet ourselves where we're at and not practice what Geshe Punso said, stupid compassion. Yeah, that was his word, stupid compassion, meaning, we're wearing ourselves thin and burning out trying to help others. We're not taking good care and balance of ourselves. So a very important point that you're bringing up is in terms of cherishing others, we're going to be able to do that as we're healthy and well. And so last week we were talking about the difference between self-care and self-centeredness. And self-care is making sure that, yeah, your needs are met, that you are healthy, that you are well, that you're putting yourself in healthy situations with healthy people and good environments, and you're not maintaining, difficult environments, friends and workplaces, and put yourself healthy, supportive as much as you can. And as we build up and become more capable, we'll be able to endure more difficult people and situations, but we don't need to go seek them out. We really need to meet ourselves where we're at and understand the difference between self-care and self-centeredness. Yeah, self-care is critical and self-centeredness is painful. And self-centeredness, I'm more important than other people, and I'm focused on how people affect me and whether I'm getting this or not getting that. And, a lot of judgment on a lot of really afflictive states versus self-care is what's healthy and well for me. Who are the people in my life that are good for me to be around? What's a healthy way to live? What are the basic needs that I need to be well? And what's kind of employment that's good for what I'd like to do, and have some joy and some nourishment internally so that I can be helpful to others. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Okay. I can only see a few of you because I have me pinned here for our recording. So if you do have something pop in, I will get back here. So now we're getting to what we were speaking to a bit earlier. Look for positive results of altruism in your life. For example, recall some experiences in relationships where you learned that being less selfish and more concerned for the other person led to greater harmony, peace, and happiness. Also, compare how you feel when you do things motivated by concern for others versus doing things just for yourself. The attitude of cherishing others is also an essential ingredient of the path of enlightenment. We need to cultivate unconditional, there you get that pop up, love, compassion, and bodhicitta. And to practice generosity, ethics, patience, and other perfections. By cultivating these positive mental states and practices, not only do we create the causes to become enlightened and thereby able to benefit others in unimaginable ways, we will also experience greater happiness now and in our future lives. So again, just always coming back to direct experience and seeing what are the attitudes that really promote the qualities of the mental emotional state you'd like to have in your life. And the 4 pillars of mental well-being, just modern Western psychology. It's got awareness, insight, connection, and purpose. So you just take a look at those. If I'm mindful, aware, have some insight about my motivations, and be connected to people in healthy, meaningful ways, and live a purposeful life in alignment with values and ethics and virtue. That's just across the board. Nothing Buddhist about that. Just human. And if we engage in those, we can test, do I feel better about who I am? Do I have more resiliency? Do my days go a little more smoothly? And do I adapt to challenges quicker in a healthier, meaningful way? Maybe I start seeing challenges as opportunities to grow. And then noted in there was, these other perfections. So the 6 perfections that we recited in the refuge prayer: generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, wisdom. These are the qualities, perfections of a bodhisattva. And, we can just see tangibly how much better we feel when we're a generous person, when we're miserly, how much better we feel when we're ethical than when we're not ethical. Patience speaks for itself. And if we're patient, we're not suffering as much. And we're more capable of doing things that require some effort, joyous effort, recognizing the value in what you're doing and why you're doing it, then it's not that effortful. That's a winner right there. We can get that one. Doing the dishes, helps you be the person you want to be, then, it's not a big effort to do something that helps you be a person you feel good about being. If you can find interest in what you're doing, it's quite meaningful. Yeah. Even traveling on the road. I was driving, I had a 2-day drive back from California. And just seeing other people on the road, thinking about their lives, and they come from families, they have hopes and dreams, and they're going somewhere, and we're traveling together, and we're being safe, we're staying in the lanes, we're caring for each other. It's a much nicer drive than, that idiot's in your way and they keep speeding up and going down, and don't they have cruise control, and, what the heck's going on? That's a lot more painful way to drive. So you can just see, right off the bat, the difference in experience based on how we're attending to something. Are we cultivating, And then joyous effort, which is where I left off. When you're interested in something, there's not much effort. When you don't want to do something, there's a lot of effort. And so recognizing the value of what you're doing, why you're doing it, how it serves you and others, a lot less effort. Concentration, wisdom, concentration, the ability to train our mind so I can be present, so I can know what I'm doing. And it's interesting, modern research just on being aware, and that was one of the 4 pillars: awareness, know what you're doing. Just knowing what you're doing is one of the highest determinant factors on your level of happiness. Just knowing what you're doing, being present with what you're doing. Doesn't matter what you're doing. It could be mowing the yard. Is one of the biggest key factors in your level of happiness. Yeah. So people say, really? Well, think about it. If you're paying attention to mowing the yard, you know what you're not paying attention to? Worries, fears, resentments, things you got to do. All the stresses of the world, you're just mowing the yard. So when you're attending to something, when you're aware of what you're doing, yeah, it's already better. If you know why you're doing it and how it contributes to your life, that's even better. Yeah. So I even need to change a tire on a car. Wow, how wonderful. I have a spare. I have a car. And maybe I have AAA, maybe not. Maybe I have a jack, maybe not. Maybe I have a friend I can call. What a wonderful opportunity to let someone help me if I don't know how to do it. Yeah, recently I got to go help a young man change his tire. He's a little embarrassed that he didn't know how to change a tire. And it was great. And he was very interested in learning. Showed up and, step by step. And he was excited. He got to learn how to change a tire. Said he knows how to do it next time. How wonderful. So, just let me pause there for a moment, see if anyone, since I can't see anyone, try to raise a hand or have a comment. Okay, then I'm going to take a drink here. Well, let's get to the final piece here. Conclusion. If you recognize that cherishing others is a more beneficial attitude than self-centeredness, resolve to be less selfish and more concerned for others, and focus your mind on that resolution as long as possible. close the meditation by identifying 1 or 2 ways that you can incorporate cherishing others into your day in acts of body, speech, and mind. And so this becomes the opportunity we have this week is to, well, explore this. What if I get on the road thinking, how can I be helpful and how can I drive safe? How are we doing things with others? Keep an eye out. And my little, typically we don't like to share, things we do because we just kind of keep that to ourselves. But one of my little habits, and I'll just share this just because I think it could be helpful, is to just try to see everyone that I meet as a friend, and to try to be a good friend in whatever interaction you have. And it's amazing when you travel and you look people in the eye and you check in with them, how those interactions change. And the opportunities to make connections with people and have little conversations, which is a very different attitude than, just trying to get where you need to go and keep your head down and this person will eat up your time. And even, seek out things. I went to, where was I? Winnemucca, Nevada. And, get something to eat. It's late, got checked in the motel. And, there's a truck, one of those cooked trailer trucks, it's cold out. And nobody's in line there, man. And I just thought, no, maybe I give them some business. Indian food is actually pretty good. But, I was the only customer there. And you think, well, I'll pick that place. The opportunity to not get the best parking spot unless someone else had one, little things like going in the bathroom and you have to stop and you just notice toilet paper, tissues on the ground, like try to tighten it, tidy it up a little bit so the next person coming in feels a little more welcoming. So I find that when I travel like that, then, my travels are pleasant and I get to connect. And 2 days worth of driving. It's funny. A lot of people say, you drove for 2 days. And I'm like, yeah, it was nice. Big open views and a lot of people finding their way together, ways to be safe. Then there's some way of being that you might find beneficial. So this week, the opportunity is to see if we cultivate attitudes of altruism, compassion, caring for others, just seeing how we can be helpful. And avoiding burning yourself out and not taking care of yourself. Just recognize the opportunities as they arise in a way that's meaningful, and then make sure your needs are met and you're putting yourself in good situations. Doesn't mean taking abuse. That's not compassionate. Taking abuse from someone, that's not compassionate. That's enabling. So, being able to set boundaries in healthy ways, very compassionate. Self-care as well. So this is this little journey that we get to explore. And if we do find that we have a lot more joy with an altruistic attitude, then that becomes more rewarding. And personally, what I find is that when I'm more connected like that, it's so much easier to be with people. And when I'm not so connected, I'm more self-centered, and just being around people is harder. But what I found over the years is, when I'm doing things I feel good about and I have nothing to hide and, I'm interested, then there's real opportunities to connect in the world and know that your interactions really do have an impact. And you feel better about it too. So it's interesting as within Tibetan Buddhism, they're very analytical and, it's important to use reason, judgment, not just take things up just because it's said. And so that's why before you engage in a practice, they'll always have you explore what's the downside and what's the upside. What are the benefits of doing something like this? What's the downside of self-cherishing, for example, self-centeredness. Sorry. And so you kind of, okay, let me explore this a little bit. And then we find what's worth our time rather than just accept it. explore it. Find out, is it worthwhile? It's beneficial. And then the weird thing is, you're kind of motivated to be happier, and then you might think, well, that's kind of self-centered. Because I'm going to be happier, I'm going to have a lot less afflictive emotions. And His Holiness will call that being wisely selfish. Because you're really not doing it for yourself. You're recognizing the greater degree of well-being you have, the greater joy you have. The more you're able to help others, the less afflictive your mental emotional states, the more you're benefiting others. And you're cultivating this path of liberation from all that suffering. And you're going to be a lot more benefit to others. So there's a little bit of this self-motivation, seeing the benefits personally, but really recognizing the value that's arising from not being self-centered in the process. All right. Well, that's about all I have to say about that. I'm just clicking around here, see if anyone has any input, discussions. You guys are killing making me talk this whole time. It's killing me in a good way. All right. Well, if you're all good then.
John, I
We'll
don't
just
feel like
go ahead.
twice, but nobody else is going, so I'm rescuing you tonight. But yeah, I just wanted to share that I am always the one doing the dishes, and I can sometimes have a resentful attitude about it. So I started a practice a while back of just thinking about all the things that my husband does for me while I was doing the dishes, and instead of thinking, "Wow, he's not doing the dishes, I'm doing it again," and it's so nice because I just really got to think about all the things he does for me, and how much that's supporting me, and then I really want to do the dishes for them, and so and my son as well, just thinking about all the things he's added to my life, and yeah, made it a lot more enjoyable. Enjoying doing dishes more. And I know that partly came from something you were talking about of thinking about all the positive attributes of your partner. So I found it to be really helpful. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great to hear. What clear examples, right? Because what we're attending to becomes our reality. We can, what am I paying attention to? Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. All right, Denali.
Thanks, John. So I don't know if this really pertains to what we're talking about, but it does for me in that I have a group of artists that I've been meeting with for over 2 years, and I haven't charged any money because I like to teach what I know um, freely because there's so much more joy in doing that. And I tell them all the time, we're equal. I want everyone to contribute. And recently, they really encouraged me to charge a little bit of money, like to collect data. And already I feel like it may change things. So I'm just going to be aware of how charging people money for something that gave me so much joy before, how that might change the whole feel of the group and how many people might just not show. So I'm wondering if this applies, and I don't know if it's altruism to not charge people money for these sessions, but I am aware that when money enters in, it feels a little bit, it just feels different.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, just out of curiosity, I mean, this is how we operate Dharma centers. We provide the opportunity for people to donate if they can and if they find it valuable, but there's never a requirement. And And I don't know if that's something you thought about, or maybe because you said the word Donna, you can, people ask about it, and you're giving them an opportunity if they have some resources to share their appreciation, which would be altruistic. But never, having someone feel bad because, they're not in the situation. And so I find a lot of balance in that. I've had to learn, I lived quite a bit of my life on just offerings. I, to some degree, still do. And if people make donations, we have a Dharma center. They don't make donations. We don't have a Dharma center. And maybe I'll get to have my fantasy job, actually go drive that little bus that I want to drive. But, we'll see.
I have
And
something that, ooh,
yeah, hang on. There's another person. Amy's waiting. Somebody chimed in there for a minute. Yeah, so just that opportunity. So if you thought about that, and it's nice, but yeah, watch your emotions around money because that could get things tricky. But you can have a lot of freedom around it, comes or it doesn't. Okay.
Hmm.
Did whoever just chime in, did you have something to say along this specific lines or?
Yeah, sorry, that was me. I
Okay,
couldn't
yeah.
figure out how to put my hand up.
No problem.
Speaking to Denali, just kind of like what John had said, I've offered some like sound healing, guided meditation things in a park, and with some friends of mine, and we find that just setting out a bowl for donations and letting people know, and part of that is also at the end of it, like if people want to bring prasad, like food offering or something like that, because sometimes people just want to contribute to a gathering by making an offering that way. And that seems to go pretty well. And surprisingly, people often contribute a fair amount, I think more than we would have expected if we had set a price for something.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah. One last thing I know, and we'll go to Amy, is so when I traveled, when I was a monk, and we traveled and we offer our events, and there was a workshop I taught on the Cherishing sadhana practice, and people had like a suggested donation, which I was always kind of against. But anyway, it's what it was set up. But it was offered to anyone, so I can. And this one guy showed up, and what he had was a big bag of rice to offer, and a nice card. And like that's what he had, like that was the best offering, because he didn't have a bunch of other stuff, but he had this and it meant something, and he showed up to everything, and he got a lot out of it. So it's interesting sometimes that people, their own generosity comes in many forms when you allow it. It's really nice. All right, Amy.
Hi, John. Hi, everyone. It's really good to be back. I've been away. I've been thinking a lot about what you're saying about being in service to others and thinking about how to make even just travel better. And that just so resonates with me right now. I'm running into so many people who feel so distraught at the state of things, almost on every level. And I've been thinking a lot about, remember the movie Life is Beautiful, the Italian film that won a bunch of awards. It was a really about an Italian bookseller who was put into a concentration camp when the Nazis took over Italy, and he was separated from his wife, but he managed to keep his young son with him. And for those that don't know, the gist of the movie is he makes being in occupied Italy in a camp into a game for his son, a sort of hide and seek and keeping score, to keep his son alive and also to keep him unscathed from the horrors that are happening around them. And what struck me in going back and seeing that recently was how in playing that game, he was also giving himself so much hope and joy and and most importantly, he was looking around for the opportunities to keep that alive, which meant he was much more alive in the circumstances and had more agency than the people around him. And there's an incredible scene where he's pushing his son in a wheelbarrow, and the young son is hidden under burlap, but he has a hiccup, so he's almost he's in danger of being given away. But all the other prisoners that are marching around them with their tools down this cobblestone street are just so forlorn. They've lost hope. They're looking down. Understandably, they would feel that way. They had every right to. But this man is looking around like, what's the next thing I can do to create joy and protect this, my son? And he sees a door into this where the loudspeakers are, where the officers bark orders at everybody. And he looks around and he slips in there with his son, and he gets on the loudspeaker and he starts telling an Italian fairy tale, which is actually the story of his first date with his wife. And it boomed all over the camp, and you see the women stand up and listen, and the mother in particular, who now knows that her husband's alive, and then the boy chimes in, says, "Mom, we're winning the game." And she knows he's alive, but all the other mothers understand that there's like this incredible moment of hope for everybody, because this one man is still looking for, not looking into the future about the bigger gloom and doom, but what is the next thing I can do to be in service to the people I love, the people around me? And they actually have the YouTube clip, the clip on YouTube. It's Buongiorno Principessa. If anybody wants to go watch it, it's really, really uplifting.
Thanks for sharing that, Amy. It's a good message for the times we're living
Yeah.
in. Yeah, very valuable. And Keith.
Thanks, John. Thanks for the shares. Good to see everybody. Yeah, sort of tagging on Amy. I didn't realize, she would be talking about something so inspiring, and that's what I wanted to share too. Is if you're not aware of it, the monks on their peace march, marching from Fort Worth, Texas, to Washington D.C. They're all over YouTube. There's all kinds of videos of their march, and they're marching silently. That's 2,300 miles they're going. I don't know how many days they're in now, 70 something maybe. And they're marching in silence or just chanting. They're not carrying signs. It's not a protest. They are just marching in peace and bringing their peace every step of the way along the road. And it's tremendously inspiring for me to watch them and to watch people's reactions to them. I mean, they're going through the South, the Bible Belt, working their way up towards North Carolina now. But more and more and more people are being attracted to them, bigger and bigger and bigger crowds, and kids are handing them flowers, and everything's by offering. The churches are opening up places for them. The police are escorting them through every town, with their police cars, and they have a dog. I forget the name of it. It's Alcoa or something. That it has been a tremendous inspiration, I guess, too. The big thing, I guess, fitting it in with today's talk, there's a lot of altruism coming towards the monks, and the monks, in their way, are being altruistic and bringing this message of peace just in their way of being. And I find it's just inspiring hope in me, and faith, and just good feelings of unity. It's transcending, I think, religious barriers and political polarizations. Seems to really be bringing people together. And it's just nice to witness it in the face of so much bad and disturbing news on the television every time you turn it on, or the live stream news feed. So if you're interested, check it out. I think you'll find it joyful and inspiring.
Thank you, Keith. Yeah, how wonderful it is that you guys are bringing up, all that which we can attend to, which gets overshadowed, right? There's a lot of difficult stuff. There's also a lot of resilience and a lot of humanity as well.
Well, and a lot of loving kindness. And that's a point I've heard you make so many times. You know, the news highlights the things that are unusual, the negative things that are unusual, because typically the majority of people are kind with one another. And these films, these videos of the march are just overflowing with loving kindness. Hundreds and thousands of people, you know, along their route. It's awesome.
Good stuff. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. So, not just an opportunity to bring our own altruism, but to notice the kindness of others. Yeah. See what we're looking for. Well, let's go ahead and dedicate the merits that we've already gathered this evening here. Great deal of merit and wisdom we've gathered together on this Wednesday. Could have been doing a lot of other things. But we're here cultivating our hearts and minds in this altruistic opportunity to be of benefit to others. So let us collectively dedicate all of our merits for the benefit of others, that may our efforts find their way into the world of reducing suffering, cultivating well-being, understanding, connection, and compassion. And may we also dedicate this merit collectively for our own spiritual growth, that we may continue to grow, to understand ourselves, to open our hearts, and to ultimately recognizing our own Buddha nature and be of greatest benefit to all. With that context, those who'd care to can join me in the dedication prayer. By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha.